Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to the Fandalorians, where we, of course, are going to be diving deep into season 2 of The Mandalorian. Long waiting for this series to get back. And with me right now, we have the very most awesome, the legendary Boba Fett, ladies and gentlemen. Boba's going to be joining, popping in and out. He's helping Rob out with some of his reviews.
Oh, let's just stop you right there. We're just gonna stop you right there.
All right.
Okay, these are my reviews. Look, this guy, he's doing his thing. He's making all these other videos. I'm like, I need to step in and tell the truth about what's going on, and so. I didn't want to step on your toes there. Don't mean to correct you. I know this is your program.
Boba, I don't want to
upset carbonite or anything.
Yeah, but, no. Well, maybe I should make that sound. That's a bad sign for carbonite references. Yeah, okay. Well, look, Boba. I don't want to upset you or anything like that. They're your reviews. If you guys haven't caught, he has reviewed the first episode. He gives his own kind of little personal perspective on everything. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, after this show, go jump over to Rob's channel, Smirking Gun Reviews. Check out Boba Fett's reviews of the first episode. But I do need to get Rob back for this one, Boba. So if you don't mind going to grab him, and then we'll catch you maybe later on the program, maybe next week. Okay? How's that sound?
Well, just really quickly, I do have a prepared statement.
Oh yeah, please go ahead.
This is just a thing for all the people that have been going bananas on the internets here in America and all over the world about the speculation that the Pedro Pascal is not going to be the Mandalorian for too long and that they're just laying the groundwork for me to show up. Listen, folks, look, speculation is great, but as you can see, I'm sitting right here and I can tell you right now that speculation is just speculation. Until it actually happens, try to keep your, collective, brains inside your heads because, there's just rumors are just rumors, right? And, please go check out my reviews over on Rob's channel. Don't make me come looking for you, okay? And, I guess I'll let him talk about it now. He's been crying all week saying, I didn't get to talk about it. So I'll cut out now and then I'll bring him in, baby.
Okay. Well, thanks, Boba. I appreciate it. And again, didn't mean to upset you there. So yeah, Rob should be joining us shortly. Now, as usual, there is a third that is normally with us. Don Willie, unfortunately, he was out on his own bounty a little earlier this week. Let's just say things went a little sideways. He's stuck in a Bacta tank tonight. So maybe someone can get him some little text keyboard and he'll be able to jump into the chat. But for tonight, it is just going to be Rob and myself. Hey, welcome back, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good. He's stormed off.
Yeah, I think I might have upset him. I don't know.
He'll get over it.
He's very possessive about those reviews.
Yeah, he doesn't have much anymore.
That's true. All right. So, yes, I was just telling everyone, Don's stuck in a Bacta tank today. So just going to be Rob and I diving into our big season premiere here of The Mandalorian, Chapter 9, The Marshal. So since Boba spent so much time giving all of his thoughts, Rob, why don't you go ahead and start us off? What are your quick impressions of the premiere, of the wait? How did you feel at the end of it? Especially, it kind of gave us an extra long episode to kick things off, which was nice. So what do you guys think?
The extra long, the length was great. The thing is just like anything else that you love. It doesn't matter how long it is. It'll be over like that when you're really into it. So as much as it was great that it was long, it was still over in a flash and I wanted more. I wanted more right away, but it was nice that they did this extra long episode. I hope that we'll get at least kind of the same length, maybe 5 minutes off here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, this was not a big story. they took a long time telling it, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed them adding Timothy Olyphant to the Star Wars universe. I think he's an interesting character. I know some people found this episode boring. I did not. I thought that this was a great first step into the journey that we're on after, setting up the world of Mando and the kid and where we have to go. I think that also we talked a lot about last year. This is a live action cartoon.
Yeah.
And this like an episode of the Clone Wars with the Mandalorian instead of Obi-Wan and all the other stuff. This just felt like an episode of like Mando goes on an adventure to try to find Mandalorians. He finds a guy who is in the armor, and I kind of like following the same kind of route as last year of these little missions that he goes on to save or help, people in need, instead of doing like, what the character of Boba Fett would probably do, which would be to profit off of this or something like that, or just blast everybody. Instead, we've got a character who's evolving and doing things differently. And I liked everything that they did in this. Just about some of the stuff was the smaller things I have a little bit of issues with, just like, some of the writing and the townsfolk and things like that. But otherwise, I thought it was a really solid episode that had a really fun premise. And again, the end was great. And whatever we get, I'm fully satisfied with this episode.
Sure. And I think you're kind of right on the money there. Overall, this was awesome. Come on, we've been waiting all year for this to return. The moment they do the opening shots, again, beautiful use of effects, beautiful setting of tone. We were right there in it. They kick us off with a wonderful little fight scene. Having the extended episode, I agree. I would love for all 8 of these episodes to be this long or about as ish. That's greedy of me. I realize that. I want more. But I think it does give them an expanse to do some really in-depth, interesting storylines. And they kind of promise, and I think that's kind of the promise of this season, of the search for Mandalorians, the search for Baby Yoda's people. I know the child, we all call him Baby Yoda. I'm really excited about where they can do in the exploration they can with this. I'm going to talk definitely a lot about the great stuff that happened in this episode. But like you, there are a few things that kind of bother me, and I don't want to harp on it. I don't want to be like nitpicky or like, oh, this show just isn't making it. It does its job just fine. It's a live action cartoon. It's for all ages. Just personally, as an older Star Wars fan, seeing this as a kid, sometimes I don't always want them to aim for the low-hanging fruit. Sometimes I want them to think the audience, even the kid audience, can go along without having an additional goofy scene thrown on top of stuff in order to keep us entertained. This hits like 9 out of 10 on all things. There's just a few stuff keeping it, I think, from reaching what its potential could be. So when I give my little criticisms or things that don't, please, this is definitely just small stuff I wish they could tweak and do better, or things that just from a film appreciator kind of gets me or throws me out of things. And I don't know if it bothers anybody else. So there are some things, like I said, I do want to kind of jump into and talk about a little bit. So yeah, let's also say hi to everyone in the chat here. We of course got Silver Surfer joining us, Silver. Devra as well. And yeah, Silver Surfer actually brings in an interesting point here about ripping off Knights of the Old Republic, the old video game, that they happen to do a little bit of. Sorry, my wife is asking for the keys right here, sweetheart. Terribly sorry. I have giant pockets, so things get lost in here very easily. Sorry, I lost where I was. Let's kick things off from the beginning there with our intro mission.
You were talking about Knights of the Old Republic.
Thank you. Silva Surfer's comments, master of nitpicks, as he mentions here. This episode did seem to be very reminiscent of the first mission on HK-47 of Knights of the Old Republic. Honestly, I haven't played that game in so long. Your access to that is a little bit better than mine. But for sure, that is one thing about the overall of this episode is it's a classic Western townsfolk versus the native tribes. You've seen this in every Western. This is just the space variant of it. I think they do a great job. Again, it's a simple storyline, but it works for the Western theme of Mandalorian. But yeah, let's get into the beginning here. Let's talk about our little opening sequence, because look, every show wants to kick things off with a bang. And if we're going to talk about actually some video game references, let's talk about the 90s fighting video game Masters of Terras Kazi. Now, I was not a big Mortal Kombat video player. That wasn't my type of game. So I didn't really play this all that much. But I do remember the two Gamorreans going after each other. So this opening fighting sequence does seem to maybe be a little flashback to a faint corner of fandom. Did you ever play Masters of Terras Kazi? Yeah, I don't know anybody that ever has.
Yeah, the fighting games weren't really my thing. I think we played some Tekken 2. That was about the height of I had the original Mortal Kombat on Genesis that I was terrible at, and I got relatively good at Tekken 2 a few years later, but that's about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, seeing Luke and Han going into it after like a Greedo on in a fighting game it was just an odd choice to me. But I guess somebody was a fan who's at least in the art department in here.
Well, that's great. I love that's an amazing thing to put in there. Just like the Knights of the Old Republic thing. Like because look, we always talk about this, that as fans we feel like we're the majority, but we're not. So the majority of the people don't know anything about the Knights of the Old Republic. So for them, this is like a fresh take or a fresh thing or a new way to do something that they've seen before. They don't know Knights of the Old Republic from the Clone Wars from Rebels or anything else. So I think it's more of a really great homage to those things, showing honor to the things that came before, like the Gamorrean guards fighting in there. Like, I thought that was great. I didn't know that was a reference to anything, and now that I know that it probably was, that's even better.
Well, and they've done that a lot through this episode. Is sneaking in tons of little Easter eggs and references and I think many of them are done smartly. And by that, I mean, if you get them, it's a secret joy. If you don't, it makes absolutely no difference. Just briefly, the speeder bikes. We've got Mando on his speeder bike, and up pulls Timothy Olyphant on let's be honest, a total dick comparison move right here. My bike's bigger than your bike. But for fans, they go, wait a minute, isn't that Anakin's pod engine? It doesn't mean any extra stuff, but it's those are the wonderful little bits of stuff they can do in the show. When they make references, that's a bonus if you're a fan, but it doesn't leave you wanting if you don't get it, if you don't see it.
Yep, it's great. I mean, the people, and it makes sense that he would have, even if it wasn't Anakin's pod, if they just found somebody else's pod, it's a great reference to that nothing is junk on Tatooine. Somebody is going to find scrap and use it for something. It's about surviving out there. So if you can get something to work for you, that's what you use. And that was amazing. I thought that was such a great touch to do that. And the fact that it just happened to be the other thing is another bonus. So yeah, like it's a win-win. You either catch it or you don't, but you still think it's cool because people still will recognize pod racing. Oh, cool. Yeah. 90% of the people are probably not going to think, that is that Anakin's, but they're still going to recognize what a pod is, and they're going to be happy to see something that they remember from their childhood.
Yeah, or even if they don't ID it, but yeah, some part of their head's like, hey, there's something familiar about that. And I love your point about Tatooine. You do. You have to reuse everything. You can't let anything be scrap. Yeah, we're going to get. Yeah, we're definitely going to get to Amy Sedaris's bit. But let's talk our little opening bit. Again, we had a great intro. We've got, this is establishing Mando is now looking for Mandalorians. This is one of my small little critiques, though. Isn't this a lot of exposition for Mando? Why would he tell this guy that the armor has now put him on a mission in order to find the youth for this thing, and so he needs Mandalorian? That was the one thing I was like, why are you telling him this? Well, it's the opening scene. It's catching all of us up. It's for the audience. It's not for him.
It is a little weird because when you watch the episode, you get the minute and a half intro to everything that happened.
Right.
Okay. So if you skip that, then I guess you might need, and you've never seen any season 1, then I guess you need that maybe a little bit. But yeah, it's a strange way to do the expo dump with this character who, as soon as you see and the way he talks is, it's going to go a certain way. And I can definitely see why that's a nitpick.
Well, and he repeats it when he lands on Tatooine with Amy Sedaris. He almost does the whole thing again of why he's on this mission and where he is. Though, okay, another small aside. I know we haven't even started the episode, and I keep doing asides. I really would like to see episode 8 or chapter 8.5, where Mando goes to the library. Because don't you think if he had his quest is to return this creature to his people, his first stop would be, well, what kind of creature is this? Does anyone know? Is there a library? Is there he's on Tatooine just going through card catalogs? Nope.
Some sort of bestiary. He needs the guy from Harry Potter to what's that guy's name from the Fantastic Beasts?
Oh yeah. Nobody remembers what his name is. Newt Scamander.
Newt Scamander, yeah. This world needs a Newt Scamander to tell everybody. In fact, I bet you there is. I wouldn't be surprised if they suddenly throw a character like that in, just for a gag almost, to somebody who can actually identify every creature in the galaxy or something. Somebody who's been doing research on everything.
Sure. Now, obviously, not as an exciting of an episode.
No.
It's much better to be going to places and searching out the Mandalorians. But I did think of that as an interesting thought. It was like, okay, you have to return this baby to his family, and your first thought is to track down the Mandalorians and backtrack through them, I guess, because they fought Jedi. That's the other thing. There's an odd time-wise where Jedi really were only 20 years ago. There should be people that remember the Clone Wars. I mean, Mando himself was obviously orphaned during the Clone Wars because it was a droid army attack. So I think more people, anyway,
everybody should remember that. I mean, it's a big galaxy, right? But I mean, they were watching the Death Star blow up, right?
Right.
So they know these things, they have their version of TV. They've got their hollow TVs or whatever they have where they get their news from. So this is the biggest, these are the big events in their galaxy. I mean, tiny things happen here and nobody will let you forget them. So, I mean, we'll keep, we keep things in the back of our mind. We gnaw on things that bug us for a long time. They would definitely remember the Clone Wars.
Yes. All right.
But I do that first scene. When they come out of the dark, that whole just coming out of the dark, the kid hovering next to him, that sets such a great tone. Here it's been all this time. We are back. We are walking straight into frame. we are on a mission. It's dark. There's red-eyed monster creatures we're not afraid of at all. You got all that great graffiti.
Oh yeah, I loved all of that little C-3PO in the background there.
Like I loved that little nod and just that whole this whole scene was such a great reintroduction to the show, despite a couple of exposition problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I love the kickoff, and again, even his big fight in the beginning was awesome. It was a great fight. We're showing all of his tricks and his trades. I love the fact that his armor is part of his fighting style. With the headbutts and the knockbacks and the blocks, it's because of its strength and its resiliency. It's part of how he fights and not just protection for him. I mean, yeah, it was an awesome intro. And you're right, it really does get you back into, we're back, the Mandalorian, we're kicking ass now. And John Leguizamo, I think, in an awesome little first role there. Usually I can pick him out because he's usually playing John Leguizamo and whatever character that he's playing. Here, I actually had to wait until the credits before I was able to ID him. I think he did a great bit there.
You know who I thought it was at first? I thought it was D'Onofrio. I don't know why. He just had this kind of tone that sounded very, 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 D'Onofrio kind of like that.
Yeah.
Like made me think of Men in Black meets Kingpin.
Yeah, for sure. And no, I can see that. I can see
that whole thing. Yeah, that character. What happened to him, man? I loved it. I loved Mando. Batmaned him. Mando totally pulled a Batman move out.
Totally did.
Hits him with the. He ties him up, strings him up like Batman would a criminal, and says, "You're not gonna die by my hand, but I don't have to save you either."
Yeah.
Like,
no, it was perfect. Well, we did get one other little bit of information in that opening scene also, and that is definitely that Mandalorians are very hard to find. This guy he's collecting the armor himself. That's what he likes to do. He mentions about having to dig them out of their holes. So we don't know actually what has happened on Mandalore, and that's actually something I'm hoping that we're going to elucidate a little bit more, because if you're looking for Mandalorians, why isn't your first stop Mandalore? What has happened with everyone that was dragged everything down? We know some stuff, but only really what has happened up until the Battle of Yavin, just prior to, if we follow what happened with Rebels and what happened, if we can take some of Sabine Wren's ventures there, we know that it was under Imperial control and there were families and forth, but certainly it seems to be that you can't get. Maybe Mandalore is locked out. Maybe it's a no-go planet. For some reason it's doesn't allow travel to or from there. Anyway, but a good interesting bit. It does let us know that Mandalorians are still hard to find. That's definitely sets us the reason of why we are having the adventures we are, and what leads us to, of course, Tatooine and the town of Mos Pelgo via, let's talk about it and get out of the way, Amy Sedaris again. I'm not a fan, folks. I like Amy Sedaris just fine. I don't like this character. It pulls me out every time. I know she's there for the kids. and the great droids and the bad motivator jokes that the adults get, but the kids don't. I don't know. You have a thought? Keep talking.
My first nitpick of this episode was just, I understand why we're going there now, it's because of the last known, this, it just so happens that the Mandalorian that Gore Koresh knows is a very important person in the Star Wars universe for a lot of us. And right now he's probably bothering my dad watching the Bears game right now.
Sure.
Hopefully he doesn't hear me and come charging down and blast me. But going back to Tatooine again just feels like, oh my God, again, just going back to that well over and over and over and over again.
There are other desert planets.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, right. It is. It's because we have to get Boba Fett going in. The fans have wanted it. They've called for years. There was a Boba Fett show originally being discussed before The Mandalorian came in.
A movie.
Yeah.
Too,
oh, yeah. And, Tamura Morrison. I can't remember. I didn't write his name down. The guy who plays played Jango Fett. And everyone is still around. And so you've lost all of your, you can't bring Luke back. You can't bring Leia back. Fortunately, you're not going to get Han or any of those old classic characters. Who is it that you could get that would technically still be alive right now to reference back to the older fans? And that's going to be, you have the actor that could play Boba Fett.
Yeah. So the Amy Sedaris thing, though, yeah, look, yeah, she's one of those actresses that's hit or miss for me. When she hits it, she really hits it. When she doesn't, she doesn't. It's not her fault here. They offered her a job. Hey, you want to be in Star Wars? Yes.
Oh yeah, no, everybody wants to be in Star Wars.
Yeah, but what they did for her here, it's not doing her any favors. Yeah, she's there for the kids. She's there for, oh my God, baby, like the baby, and the funny robots. You're right. It takes me out of it too. And then like you said, having to tell her all over again the same thing that he just told the guy. Guy told Gor Koresh, and she's our character's touchstone on Tatooine. So it's basically unavoidable.
Right.
Unless she had gotten killed in that last episode, which now I'm wishing she had. So that way he'd have to find another person to talk to on Tatooine. Sorry to everybody that likes Amy Sedaris' character, not the actress. But I did not. Pelimoto.
Yeah.
No thanks. She's just there to tell him where to go.
Right.
And offer to keep the baby. Or it's any of its pods or however it breeds.
Yeah.
I thought that line was kind of funny, but the rest of it, no thanks.
Yeah. And of course, we do get our nice little R5 Easter egg there as well from A New Hope. Though I gotta ask, okay, again, I know I'm nitpicking here. The map. She says that Mos Pelgo is gone now. Hasn't heard that in everything. It's like a ghost town. Then she pulls out what she specifically says is a pre-war map, but now doesn't have the town on it. If it's a pre-war map, wouldn't it have the town on it?
Yep.
Also, if you're a marshal that's fought off bandits wearing Mandalorian armor, and the town is obviously still producing because it's a mining town, I would think that would have gotten around more. I mean,
no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. Those are my little bits.
No. It's great, man. Because I don't think of everything, and it's nice to have more people that around so that we can get all this stuff. But there were a few things during this episode that I went, but would you really need to, why do you just interesting choices? But look, they're trying to ride this very thin line between kids stuff and adult stuff. They're trying to give everybody everything. And I feel like it's not dumbed down for kids, but not a lot of aged up enough for us so that we don't kind of go, why did you,
it's not trusting the kids to be able to deal with things that don't constantly look back at them and go, boo, cute. I mean, honestly, little Baby Yoda's ears flapping on the speeder bike That was like that cute did me for like half the episode right there. So you don't need this other stuff.
I like some of the stuff that the chat's saying. Mercenaries here. What's up, man? The obsession with killing banthas on this show. Well, hey, that one bantha just stood there. They tried to kill it, and it went for the Tusken Raider instead.
Oh yeah.
Katie Sackhoff playing Bo-Katan from Clone Wars and Rebels this season. I'm down for that. I'm down for some Katie Sackhoff for sure.
Oh yeah, anytime you want to put Katie Sackhoff up on screen, I'm gonna go with that. Also
Mando trusting robots from West Virginia grown. I thought that was established though at the end of last season, right? Where he took he had to trust the robot.
Sure, but yeah, they did specifically mention that out. He's like, no, might as well let him look at it. Oh, you like robots now? So yeah, they did very clearly want to let us know that he has transitioned. He has evolved.
He is a growing character.
He's a growing character.
He's got ways to go, and I love that. I love that this is because again, it's hard to emote behind a helmet. So what you can do is give him positive things as a character to go through. So he's not just resetting like a sitcom or The Simpsons, where every week it's just the same thing. Nobody really learns anything. This may be a live action cartoon, but it's the Star Wars universe. And if your character just is the same every single week, it's going to get tiresome. Yeah. And I like that they did that, even if it's more kind of exposition. It is something that I think some people might miss from last season, is why that was kind of an important thing to bring up. And I think I think that will continue to play a role in this character's development as the story goes on.
Yeah. But it's also one of those things where I think if you're going to do it, that is the way you do it. You show him that he has done a different behavior. Another character acknowledges this, and then you move on. You don't have to dwell on that like, oh, so what happened? Why do you like robots now? I love that they didn't do that, and that they don't have to. If you're going to make it a character evolution statement like that, perfect. Oh, you're acting differently now. Great. All right. So let's get to our swagger king of the episode, Timothy Olyphant, who honestly I do occasionally confuse with Josh Duhamel. I like them both, but for some reason in my head, the two of them. That's what I thought for the brief moment. Then I'm like, wait a minute, no, that's not. It's the other guy. Wearing an ill-fitting set of Mandalorian armor. And I don't know, maybe somebody in the chat, maybe if you're watching this in the archives later on, that shot of him, though, wearing that armor that is kind of ill-fitting, that's got to be from somewhere. The image of that was so familiar. I don't know, maybe it's a Japanese animation variant of it. Maybe it's a personal cover, but for some reason, just that skinnier, doesn't quite fit armor look was just, it was kind of, talk about a perfect introduction. Like, it's Boba Fett, not Boba Fett. I think they gave us that really kind of perfect transition right there.
Yeah, for a second, I can tell you the emotional roller coaster I went through in about 10 seconds of screen, like when this happened, is that, you see him standing there, and I'm like, I know that's Boba Fett's armor. I realize it looks strange. It's very Clint Eastwood, man with no name, kind of standing there, like in the doorway. You can't see his face. We know, but we're supposed to kind of go, oh, and I'm like, oh, and then I hear the voice, and even though I immediately recognize it as Timothy Olyphant voice, my heart sank. And like down to the floor, through the big, just all the way down to hell for about a second, until I went, it's okay. Just because that's not him doesn't mean that he's not still alive out there somewhere. Because again, I also went right to the story from Tales from Jabba's Palace, where we find out how Boba Fett got out of the Sarlacc pit. You know, I went through a ton of emotions in this moment, but it does feel very anime. How he's standing there made me think of Cowboy Bebop a little bit.
Yeah, very much so.
But Timothy Olyphant, who is one of my favorite actors of the last probably 20 years, somebody who grew on me though. I didn't quite like him in like Scream or Gone in 60 Seconds or Go. I liked all those movies. I just didn't really like his characters or him earlier. But like after movies like after stuff like Santa Clarita Diet and Deadwood and Justified and just about everything else he's been in lately, he is a great actor. I feel like maybe he's a little too coiffed in this episode. He's a little too pretty. He's a little too iconic looking. I wanted him to look like the rest of the people there, even though he's wearing the armor. Everybody else looks like they're wearing clothes that they haven't washed in a parsec. And
he's freshly laundered.
Yeah, and the hair perfect and everything. But otherwise, it was perfect casting. There's the standoff that they have with each other is just great, And I feel like we were cheated a little bit by the fucking plot.
Well, yeah, but on the other hand, it did give a lot of great, kind of character because, he starts off with, he takes the helmet off, which is perfect because it really just stops Mando cold. We see that total difference. Though I also think this is trying to get us used to seeing Mandalorians taking their helmets off, because if anybody's watched any of the old Clone Wars or Rebels, Mandalorians take their helmets off all the time in those. We obviously have some differences going on, and I think that's going to be some interesting stuff to explore. But I love the fact that this is going to start getting Mando a little more familiar with this. Maybe the world's not exactly the way that I think it is. So he throws him off with that. He acknowledges that he's tough, that there could be a fight down. But then I saw the kid, and I thought, maybe there's something else going on, which is almost that save. And then once it looks like it is going to come, then he's like, in front of the kid, he's seen worse. Like, oh, okay. And I love they gave Oliphant that little like reaction too of like, oh, okay, yeah, that interesting, yeah. It's
gonna happen. Oh crap! I might actually have to fight this guy. I am dead, but I can't back down now. I've drawn the line in the sand, and I'm crossing it, and he's not going to back down because I made a miscalculation because I saw a kid in the room, and who wouldn't? And that's great. Yeah. And he's so good at that, of playing it like he's worried, but he's not going to show it.
No, again, I think it was a perfect character choice or a perfect actor to play this character, and do that face off. Because again, with all that, especially Justified in Deadwood, I mean, Oliphant's got swagger to spare, and he plays it really to the max in this beautifully. Now, it's interesting that you had mentioned Tales from Jabba's Palace, because Vance Cobb here actually is from a bit of Star Wars literature. That's Wendig's, God, I can't think of his first name again right now. That's Star Wars Aftermath. It's sort of a trilogy that deals with what's happening across the galaxy right after the end, right after the Death Star and the Battle of Endor and everything like that. Which is interesting because there is a tale of him and this Mandalorian armor and his discovery of it. Little different, though, than what we get here in this book, which I guess sort of shows out that, I mean, I guess Disney likes their books, but they're more than happy to shift things up on film if it plays to the story better.
I have to plug in my laptop real quick.
Oh yeah.
I'll be right back.
So now y'all have to just listen to me rant. Yeah. So again, it was just sort of an interesting idea. I actually have a massive collection. If I bring down here, I had brought them to stand by, but I have a massive collection. Those are just a handful of Star Wars books. I read all of
sorry, I thought my laptop had a better battery power.
Technical issues here on the Fandalorians.
Uh-oh.
But I kind of stopped reading the books, and it's one of the things that honestly, these are the reasons I stopped. Because I read all the old books, then Disney bought Star Wars, and all that stuff became legends and non-canon, which means all of this source of material and knowledge in my head is absolutely useless right now. I like the hat. Thank you. Thanks very much. I've been drifting more into the hat realms lately. So all of this knowledge that I had is now useless. They start writing new books and changing the canon. But even within that, they'll change canon when they move to screens. Reason being, Vance Cobb, he got the armor. It's sort of in the books, it sort of pans out similar way. He gets the armor from the Jawas, but he buys it. He's not wandering the desert there. He also has a whole series of adventures that happens with the Tusken Raiders. So, in that sense, he's what we see here in the Marshal in this episode is obviously his kind of first experience with getting close to the Tuskens, understanding them. By the end of the episode, they're kind of allies. In the books, all of this happens in the first month, year or so after the end of the war. So while it's cool they're pulling a character from the books, onto screen, and it's something that Star Wars fans can recognize, the way they just changed the story for screen, it makes me less reliant on book material. If this is an example of how that may change at any time, I don't want to like armor up my head with all of this additional knowledge and then bring it to screen, and then they go, oh, they're just going to change the story now. Anyway, that's my own personal aside. But yeah, I know why we're waiting for Rob to get back. Let's talk also briefly about the technology behind this show, because there is a lot of just so much of this is all computer generated. All of the backgrounds, everything. Obviously, when we get the shots of the crate dragon moving through town and attacking the raiders and everything, that's all CGI. That is all composite created for us. But man, they're beautiful. I gotta say, that is one of the things that this show does beautifully well, is give us those large, expansive, establishing shots. When Mando and the Marshal are riding through Tatooine, the big overhead shots, when we see the Tusken Raiders in line, the shot when we see the crate dragon first attack, when they tie up the Bacta, and you've got the one Tusken Raider yells out, then turn around, and he starts booking, and of course the crate dragon goes after him. That is one of the most beautiful shots they have done on this show yet. It's stunning. It's impressive. I'm feeling for that poor Tusken Raider who must have drawn the short straw. It is one thing, I think, with the technology and the fact that Disney is behind it and the fact they're putting so much money into it. The fact they can give us these shots makes up for so many of the little knick-knacky complaints that I have. We all plugged in there, Rob? Rob, can you hear me?
What happened?
There he goes.
I just plugged it in and it went locked out and shut the whole thing down. The whole thing just.
Well,
So,
you missed my
yeah, now it's being a little glitchy now that I'm back. But what I miss?
Well, you missed my long rant on the fact that all of my Star Wars books are useless now, so that's why I don't read any of the
Okay,
new
now
Star
it's
Wars.
buffering really bad on my end.
Up
Oh,
now.
that's a whole other thing, right? Everything not being canon, or they'll cherry pick, I guess. Like you said, the story of Cobb Vanth, being, well, he's got the armor, but they did it differently. So they're that way they don't have to pay the author of the book, or whoever gets rights to the characters that they create or whatever. But yeah, the scene when they go out there and try to get the thing to come out, that was great. One of my nitpicks actually that I have to this is the argument between Cobb and the Tuscans, but really it's more like Cobb and how his reaction to having to drink something that doesn't smell good, like your town is on the line. You were out there in good faith with these people who could kill you. You wouldn't walk out home to your town because you're outnumbered, and the Mandalorian, he's not going to suddenly just kill all these Tuscan Raiders because you decided to be a dick. And I've a weird choice for the character to just be, I'm not drinking, screw these people. Like, what are your options here, buddy? They're the ones being hospitable.
Yeah, I think it does undercut the character.
Mando spoke in their language, saved your butt right there from being attacked by a bunch of their dogs, and because I don't know what the name of the creatures are, and it felt a little forced, a little. We got to, the cowboys and thing where I don't, I out there rob us and take our, like it just felt a little. Yeah. It was Amy Sedaris hacking me. Maybe Silva, maybe.
Well, I mean, I said this was a very tried and true rote Western.
Is there a buffer?
Yeah, I think we're offset a little bit here.
It's
technical issues, folks.
There's like real like lag here.
Yeah, I think you got like almost like a 10-second lag behind me or something like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Got to be on my end.
Yeah.
Hi guys. I'm gonna back out totally out of this and see if I can just restart my thing, my entrance here, because it's already saying my browser's lost connection now.
Okay.
So I'm gonna.
All right. So Rob's gonna sign out real quick, folks, and he's gonna sign back in. So he's gonna leave it all up to me. That's fine. All right. So, but yes, let's get to our kind of final bit, which is the town and the Tuscan Raiders coming together. In the scene that Rob was just talking about around the fire, we, of course, have these sort of establishment, and Cobb sort of tells Mando on the way here that once he had gotten the armor, he has used it to fight off raiders, saving the town, in that way looking as the savior sheriff position. Now, of course, he has to look at things from the other side, the person that he was fighting against, the Tuscan Raiders. And I do like how they've used Mando to really humanize the Tuscan Raiders. We saw it last season with the fact that they were using the sign language, and the fact that he uses the Tuscans see the rest of the people on Tatooine as kind of the invaders, the colonists. The Tuscans themselves are the natives. So we got their kind of connection last season. Here we're getting a little bit more of a dive in. Not only does he have the same sign language, he speaks some of the vocal language. He can communicate with the animals. He talks about earlier on having been to Tatooine. Massive are the Sand People's dogs, says Silva Surfa. Thank you, Silva. I love you guys bringing in all that extra knowledge. It's not just us. It's you. We are all Fandalorians together. But yeah, so this brings in this is now, again, seeing the townspeople seeing things from the native side. The fact that the natives are tough and they have to be tough to live in this type of environment, but they keep their word. And it gives them, I don't know, I think at that point, finally a foundation to build on. Certainly when you have to work together to survive to fight off a giant acid-spewing great crate dragon, that is a good motivation right there. How's that sounding, Rob? Are we?
Yeah, we're all. I think we're right back where we need to be.
Yeah.
I think when this thing goes down, like it doesn't too often anymore, it's basically you have to do like a hard reset on everything. So I apologize for that, everybody. Every time we start one of these, something happens. I wasn't even at the premiere of the Fans of S.H.I.E.L.D. Episode because of a broken laptop. So,
and we've got Dawn out this one. We've got Amy Sedaris hacking us. I didn't know she had that technical ability. My God.
You got like all those little robots.
All right. Well, let's so we get everybody together. We got the big plan to take out the crate dragon. We got the town all working together. I love the scale map that they originally drew out. That's not to scale. I think it is.
I was wondering though, like why he was so like taken aback, because at the beginning they see how long that something is underneath the ground.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't stop for a good long while. He saw that. So why is he suddenly being like, well, I don't know, like, don't look that big to me. Like he suddenly forgot the events of a day prior.
There's a lot of stuff I think that gets sort of washed away so they could have their momentary reactions and stuff. That is one of the light things about the writing on this, the little internal inconsistencies that sometimes don't make sense. But they do give us these great character moments of why not Timothy Olyphant, like, oh my God, which, okay, that's great. Now, when I was watching this, my older son was here with me on the side, and we get to the part where they're about to attack the crate, and the first thing he says is, so why don't they just load up one of those banthas with a bunch of explosives and have them eat it? I'm like, because they've got to blow it up from underneath. And then 5 minutes later, that's exactly what Mando does. So, I mean, I appreciate the cool thought, and it did give us, look, when that crate dragon spewed the acid out on everyone, you can't tell me you didn't have an reaction to that.
Oh yeah, I did not expect that at all. And the thing about the crate dragons was, correct me if I'm wrong here, in A New Hope, isn't that the skeleton at the beginning of the movie where 3PO and R2 are walking? I thought that was so great to finally see one in the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
After seeing that long iconic skeleton, to finally be able to go, oh, that's what one of those looks like. Because in the animated version, they kind of look like big dragon dogs. They've been portrayed as different in different ways, but this looked like they were giving a nod to the old school, original trilogy of like, you guys wanted to know what one of these looked like. Well, here you go. It was a really impressive design. It made me think of like the sandworms from Dune.
Yeah, well, and I love the fact that they didn't really give us necessarily a great shot of it. Often, you'd see the front, but not necessarily the body, or there'd be so much dirt and sand going, or then you'd see in the side and you get this whole different kind of cool profile and then it would dive under the earth. I think it was very cool. It teased us on how it looked without just giving us an express shot of the monster, which, if anybody's big horror fans, that's the last thing that you do is actually show the monster. You want to keep it hidden as much as possible.
Yeah. And I was also getting major Tremors vibes.
Oh, it's the first thing I thought of. I was going to ask, when you first saw the worm, did you think Tremors or Dune?
Tremors.
Yeah, that was the first. I guess because it's especially the town shaking and the everyone's running up and it's coming through the ground. Yeah, it was totally a Tremors.
I would have loved to have just seen one of the actors run past Timothy Olyphant and Mando, and it just be Kevin Bacon running.
Oh, we
gotta get out of here, man! Don't step on the ground.
All right. Somebody who's technically proficient, I need you to make a video of this and stick a young Kevin Bacon from Tremors in there just running across. That would be awesome. So, yeah. But otherwise, like I said, a great fight. We, of course, get the Krayt Dragon attacks. Doesn't entirely work. We get our Mandos have to go to the air and fighting together in order to beat the dragon, which I thought was also very cool. I really wish Armor hadn't given the line about the jetpacks being difficult to learn, because right after that he uses it and flies away, and now we've got him plus Timothy Olyphant, the Marshal. They're both flying around no problem on the jetpacks. I really wish they didn't say that line, because it always makes me now quirk like, well, I guess it wasn't that hard, was it?
No, apparently not.
Yeah. But super cool seeing. I mean, a couple of Mandalorians flying around fighting after a giant worm. Yeah, give me more of that. And
another nod that they gave to me was when he set off his jetpack, just like in Jedi. Boba Fett's armor gets set off again, and he goes flying. The only thing they didn't do was the Wilhelm scream, right?
They can't make Oliphant do the Wilhelm. It would be bad. But yeah. And that's it. That is one of the many asides and references, of course, that we get to Boba Fett throughout the episode. We, of course, get the mention of the Sarlacc pit. We get the fact that the Krayt Dragon is currently living in a abandoned Sarlacc pit. The justification for that is it's abandoned if you eat the Sarlacc, which I think is the allusion to the Krayt Dragon. But I also wonder if this is going to be an allusion to how Boba Fett escaped. Is it that Sarlacc pit that they're at here? And did Boba Fett do something that killed the Sarlacc or drove him away, and the Krayt Dragon took over this? Or did Boba Fett survive because the Krayt Dragon attacked the Sarlacc while he was being digested? The fact that
you're onto something there, because then they can take what we know and then ignore the book stuff and just create their own thing again without having to give credit to who came up with the idea, 25 some years ago.
Right.
25 plus years ago. Because that's, again, that's the main reason why those books aren't canon, I think, is because they don't want to give credit to anybody else and pay them. Right. And so it's to me, it's kind of small of them to do that, but it's got to be, we have to be able to get over it. I know that we're not making an issue of it right now. It's just, that's the only way that they're going to do it. you know. So all these little tweaks that they make, all these little changes, where you either have to be fine with them or find a different show, because I don't think they're gonna ever stop doing this.
No, I think this is the map out for how Disney's going to go. This is the current pinnacle of Star Wars is the Mandalorian. They are going to be basing everything off of what they're doing now. Now that the movie trilogies are gone, before they move into whatever next realm, whether it be Old Republic, High Republic, some future stuff, just Outer Rim things, the Mandalorian is Disney's leader for Star Wars. And they're going to throw everything they can at it. And if they do it, I think, again, there is ways to do it smartly. There are a lot of references that they have in here that, again, if you know what they're talking about, it's a bonus. It's exciting. If you don't know what they're talking about, that's okay, because all of this reference to Mandalorian armor and a Sarlacc pit and everything, if you get all that and you've seen the movies and you know who Boba Fett is, great. If you don't, I don't think it matters, because they leave the breadcrumbs, and when we do get that final shot of Mando driving away and then we see the back of, look, it's Boba Fett, let's just be honest, that's who it is. Even if you don't know Boba Fett, that type of visual storytelling leads you to connect that, oh, this is someone connected to that. This is someone who's going to come back. And I don't know if you heard, but when he walks away, you can hear the little jangle of spurs that you heard when that unknown person walked up to Fennec Sand's body. Now, of course, if Boba Fett's alive, does that mean Fennec's alive? I certainly hope so, because killing off Ming-Na Wen is a stupid thing to do in one season. But if you caught that, then you obviously know this is somebody who's going in. So again, I think that's smart storytelling. And I think it does work, even if you don't get the whole Boba Fett reference throughout it. If it's all new to you, I think it does still tell you that this is somebody important we're going to see later on.
Yeah, it definitely is. It really makes me want to, I hope that they dive into, they probably aren't going to show us what happened, but I would love an explanation from the character. This is a huge exposition dump that people just want to know,
Yeah.
What happened to you? Because like I joked in my review, he had about 5 minutes of screen time between two movies, and we are obsessed with him, and he fell in the Sarlacc pit, and we still won't let go that he's not dead. He's not dead. So it's one of those stories that's been lingering on us, and we want to hear what they're going to tell us happened to this character. We want to hear it from his words, because whether you've seen him in the prequels, whether you saw him in the original trilogy, whether you saw him in the animated series as a young boy, whatever version of him you've seen, you've never heard this story before. You haven't heard this explanation. We don't know yet. And that mystery and that look that he has, right, on his, he's got the scar, he's got these guns, he's got these weapons. What's he been doing this whole time? I want to know, like, was this that Sarlacc? I mean, I feel like it has to be that Sarlacc pit. And yeah, like, is Ming-Na Wen's character alive? Because again, her voiceover was in the intro.
Yes, it was.
They added her voice in there, and I hope that wasn't just because, like, why would they? Anybody could have given us that information. I'm glad that we heard her voice. The Spurs was an excellent catch, by the way. I mean, so many people were like, "Is that who that is?" A lot of us, I think, assumed that it was Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And so it just was like a way to take us off the scent for a second. But and I know some people are using, Boba Fett as a way to say that this is what's behind, like this is what they're trying to drive the story towards because of the problems that they think are on the show. But I think it's just a natural thing that has to happen, which is there has to be more than one Mandalorian on this show. And if you're gonna go after him, because I remember every time I would watch anything that had to deal with the Mandalorians on the cartoons and stuff, it almost was it was always kind of disappointing to me. They always felt really dull to me. They always felt really I don't know. They felt like knights from like our medieval history.
Yeah.
And and there was like a lot of aristocracy and pomp and circumstance behind their culture. That bored me. That really bored me. I'm sorry. It did. I wanted to see like some of the stuff that I saw in the comics of the warriors, the brutal like warriors that these guys are. We always talk about how tough they are and how badass they are and how hard they are to kill. But all I ever saw was I saw Boba Fett flying to the side of Jabba's barge, and I saw a lot of boring politics stuff on the animated series. We still haven't seen really properly, to me, these representations of this warrior culture.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping to see with the reintroduction of this character. Because he's such a tragic kind of character, really. I mean, he's a young boy who saw his father get killed by the Jedi that fueled him towards this revenge kick his whole life, then to become this bounty hunter feared across the galaxy just to fall into a pit because he forgot that Han Solo was behind him and eaten by a Sarlacc. And this is going to be the way I go out. So yeah,
it's horrible. Well, and I mean, and even more so when this is kind of flashback to years gone past, but you're right. Boba Fett had very little screen time, but was established so strongly in fans and psyche. And I think part of it is that unknown. Who is this mysterious figure that we know very little about that has this cool armor? That fueled so much early pump for Mandalorians. Yeah, there was comic stuff where you could see this, but I mean, again, this is all pre-internet, when your source of information was the guy down the street. Mandalorians were almost, in our minds as kids, legendary fighters, and in fact, in the earlier incarnations, it was the Mandalorians that helped wipe out the Jedi. And then the whole clones in the Order 66, that didn't come on until later. So, I mean, growing up, certainly, and seeing Boba Fett, we didn't know that he wasn't Mandalorian. He was a Mandalorian as far as we knew, because he had the Mandalorian armor. He was enigmatic of this, my God, this is these massive fighters that we've never gotten to see. And I agree with you. We've seen bits and pieces of them, but it's nothing that's ever lived up to at least the head canon that I think all of us kind of established of what these fighters and race could be. And I think that's why this show was done so well, is we finally get to see some of this badass stuff. So yeah, you've got to bring back Boba Fett. I mean, he's behind all of this, in at least, from a legend motivation standpoint. I am curious though, if he's going to pop up in the show, if he's going to pop up much in the show, or if they're going to establish some little like prequel side story that they're going to be filling in Boba Fett's adventures while we're in between seasons of Mandalorian. A one-off adventure to see what happened in the Sarlacc pit and where he's been after that. On Disney Plus, people would eat that up.
You know what else would be great? Is you've got the actor, right?
Yeah.
He can play multiple versions of himself. So let's talk about, Rex and some of the clones that are left over, remnants of the Clone Wars, some of these guys that did survive, and since we know that Rex survived and got the Order 66 stuff taken out of him, there's all sorts of ways that they could use this actor. I shouldn't say utilize this actor, pay him. Okay, they will pay.
Oh yeah, it's true. Yeah, because Rex did fight in the Battle of Endor. They established that, so he would be alive at this time as just an old gray-beard man.
Yeah, and even part of me kind of just wanted it to be Rex and not Boba Fett, to be honest with you. I was like, what if this is another ruse?
Awesome. That would be
awesome. Not him. That another rug gets pulled out from under us, and he's just a clone. One of the clones out there. Maybe Rex, maybe somebody else. Somebody that just got left behind on Tatooine. I tried it because we've gotten our hopes built up before on things, and I'm trying to bring myself down just in case it isn't. But because the internet is not always right? So we know this. So for me to just say, yes, we know it's Boba Fett, I'm going to say I'm like 60-40 on this still, because just like the speculation on the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, until he says I'm Boba Fett, it's anybody. I don't care. Even though that stern look definitely feels Boba Fett. That cold look feels like Boba
Commander Fett. Cody. Did we ever see what happened to Cody? I know Rex survived. Do we know what happened to Cody?
He was on the planet that with Grievous, right? With Obi-Wan and Grievous.
I remember seeing him there because that's what he fell off. I can't remember if he popped up in Rebels or not. I'd have to rewatch the ones where they meet up with the clone group. I know it's a full Star Wars discussion, folks. We're covering all aspects of the world.
Once we go down these rabbit holes, it's hard to pull out of them. But it's technically Boba Fett is a clone of Jango, just like all the other clones. He just doesn't have the programming.
Right. An unaltered clone, I believe, is how they described him.
So he's there. Really, we're talking about just a bunch of Jango Fetts running around. Really, he can call himself whatever he wants, but really, he's just a version of Jango Fett.
Right.
Technically. But yeah, it could be anybody. I don't know what happened to Commander Cody. To me, he just kind of dropped off the earth. I'm sure somebody in the chat or somebody can Google it right now if they felt like it, to tell us what happened. But I think there's lots of ways that you could use this actor. And I think that one thing might happen here is that we might also be overplaying how much they're going to use him. Like you kind of touched on it for a second. Is he going to be just a guest spot? Like a lot of the characters that come in here, is he just going to be another person that we introduce and then we kind of say goodbye to right away after an episode?
Right.
Where Bando gets what he needs from him, gives him back the armor, we have a cool story, and then they go off to places unknown, to the next stop in their journey. I think there's a chance that could be too, because a lot of people, like I said, they're worried that this is going to be taken over by him. Maybe they should just give him his own show then. Like you said like maybe do a one-off. Well, if Disney wants to have the kind of thing like say AMC does, right? Where they honored Walking Dead going 24/7, 52 weeks a year, you're going to have Walking Dead of some kind.
Right.
And eventually when the world hopefully settles down and people are able to film again, I can see why they would want some sort of Star Wars always going, especially if we get away from the movies. And the fact that streaming services are taking over and you have to always have something new in the pipe right away.
Oh yeah. That was just
sit there because people will unsubscribe. So yeah, they can have Marvel and other things kind of fill in the gaps, but if they're smart, even though I heard about the layoffs and things that are going on, but I think that's just normal because of what's going on in the world. I think once things get back to normal, we're going to see things get back to work and we're going to be flooded. And that's another problem is that maybe things are going to be happening a little too fast once things get caught up. But I'm really hopeful that they're going to handle this character and this arc right. I just think, again, it's hard to do this week after week. This is the only part of not binge watching shows that bothers me is we don't get that instant gratification.
Yeah, I know. We gotta wait week to week.
With that instant gratification comes that empty feeling afterwards. So
well, and that's kind of the thing is while it's exciting to watch that 4-hour Mandalorian movie or 8-hour Mandalorian movie when the series drops initially, if you are binge watching, you're right, that's a weekend, and after that, then you've got a long wait before the next thing is going to come out. And I think especially because of the way that streaming works, I think you're going to have some series that are going to drop all at once. And then you're going to have some series that are going to go out week to week because they want you to come back, watch The Mandalorian, and then, I'll go check out this other thing that's on Disney Plus. What else that you have new? It's also because they can't keep having all new stuff that's high quality, brand new, dropping a whole season every week. It's just, I mean, just from a price-wise standpoint, they can't afford to do it. Now, one of the advantages of, because of how much of this show is done digitally and how they're able to use their live action digital sets, they can actually film a lot of this show with a minimal crew, I think. Than if you have, you've got a B team that's out shooting the shot of your miners looking out as the speeder bike goes by, and get a B team to shoot all those exterior. Okay, now you cheer in the bar. Yay, everyone. Okay, the Death Star just blew up. Great. And then you can take all those pieces, digitalize it background, and then have your main actors perform right in front of that digital screen. I think it allows them to do a lot of stuff with a minimal exposure to cast, which you couldn't do on a big movie set when everything had to be right there practical.
yeah,
It's well, we're at about an hour 15 here. So I think we're going to move to sort of wrap things up. Now, as our Mandalorian shakes hands with the Marshal, there is, of course, the appreciation. Hey, be good to see you again. And if season 1 is any indication, Timothy Olyphant's going to be back before the end of the season. I have an idea that this is going to be another collection of allies that will have to come together at some point later in the season to help fight against our big bad. If they're going to copy anything from last season, that really feels like where they're going to go with this. Each week, we're going to adventure, new place, new people to meet, new allies to make, so that later on we can use them to go up against Giancarlo Esposito, who, I don't know, I was hoping that we'd see him straight off, but I'm assuming they're going to save him for a while.
well, I mean, he was probably filming The Boys. There's like in COVID land, right? I mean, it's probably hard to get all this stuff done, and you probably can't, actors usually have stuff that they do, and it sits like for movies, it'll film and it'll sit on the shelf for whenever they want to release it. They'll do things a year and 2 years in advance. And like if you ever notice, like some actors just disappear for a while, and then all of a sudden they got like 6 movies in like 2 years. Right. And I think that's just on normal terms. Now people can't just zip all over the place and do a bunch of projects. They have to kind of, quarantine themselves a little bit just to get the one thing done. Mm-hmm. Everything is being done with very carefully. So I wouldn't be surprised if, he had a very limited a schedule to do this, and why it's important to have stories like this, because you couldn't get everybody. You might not be able to get Ming-Na right now. You might not be able to get Giancarlo right now. You might not be able to get, we know Carl Weathers and Gina Carano are coming back, but we just don't know. Like it reminds me a little bit of like when they redid Arrested Development and nobody could be there at the same time because everybody's schedules were and that was in the regular world. We're dealing with quarantine world now. And so it's just, I think we're going to see a lot of stories like this out of necessity, less than for story. Like last season, I think it was done to build a world, introduce us to a bunch of characters. This time, I think it's going to be the stories we're going to see are based on what they could pull off during this time period.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that's an excellent point. And also, I think that's fine if you have the whole season out. Then whenever you have someone, you could grab someone and shoot those bits, and then let them go off. And it's not as dependent about when you have, a week-to-week series where, well, we have to film this between, the beginning of the month and the middle of the month in April. And if you're not available then we can't have you in. Here, you've got a much larger time where you can say, great, if I can squeeze you in at any point, then we can just shoot your episode and then mix that in with everyone else later on. All right. So that is going to be it. We went on a little long this rain, but we're probably going to be a little tighter going forward. We also will have our third Don Willie as soon as he is able to get himself extracted from that Bacta tank and get himself back in front of a screen. So we will be back next Saturday at our regular time. That's 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we'll be doing that for the rest of the season. Also want to let you guys know that Fans of S.H.I.E.L.D. will be returning in just over a week. That is November 10th. That is exactly 1 week after Election Day. And we are going to be covering season 1. We're going to have a huge discussion, put some time away. It's going to go long. It's going to be myself, Rob, Don will be with us, and Corey Shoemaker, our very own Agent Carter. So we will have a full screen setup. We're going to be diving into favorite parts, retrospectives, how we felt about seeing the season when it first came out, how we feel about it now, and of course, how much we really think that we need 7 seasons and a movie. Get on it, Disney Plus. Rob, why don't you give us any final thoughts and then lead that into where people can find you?
Well, just first off, sorry about the technical issues. That's probably why we had to go a little longer today. That's just really weird. But all in all, other than, we could have nitpicked this probably even worse, but it was a really solid first episode. If you didn't like the direction it went, I think a lot of people wanted it to go, wanted just to jump right into where we left off, but I feel like that wouldn't have been natural to the story. We need to show the journey that Mando and the kid are on more than just being chased. Like I would feel like we were in The Boys season 2 if we were doing that. We're just immediately just being chased, like Empire Strikes Back, right? Where that's just one long chase. We need to go on this journey. We want to see the world. We want to see the people in this world. We want to see the characters go through things, and we're going to get bits of the mythology and the lore and the journey we're going on, the bigger picture as we go along. And I think that delivered here pretty much across the board. And we got Timothy Olyphant, and we got probable Boba Fett sighting. We got like so many Easter eggs. Unfortunately, we also had a character we both didn't like in this, but hopefully, and I don't think we've seen the last of her either. No, but all in all, just a really good episode. And so, if you want to find me, I'm at my channel at Smirking Gun Reviews, on Twitter at reviews_gun, on Twitch at Smirking Gun Plays, all one word, where we're always playing something there. Right now, we're trying to get the platinum on Ratchet and Clank. And then, next week, it's like next week, right? We're doing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and we're back to it. And I'm excited as heck. And then we're doing Agent Carter starting next week as well, I believe. We're starting on season 1. Me and Corey Shoemaker should be reviewing those next week. I got to actually get with her to talk about that shortly. So, that's where you can find me.
Excellent. And, of course, you guys don't want to forget catching Boba Fett himself.
Oh, yeah.
On Rob's channel right there. It gives you a great personal look at the stories that we are seeing. So I highly recommend you guys do that before you jump over here for our full Fandalorians review, which is where I'm at, where you can always find me right here on my channel, D's Reviews. We are, of course, as I said, doing Fandalorians here through this whole season. We'll be doing season reviews on Fans of S.H.I.E.L.D. starting next week with season 1. Then we'll be doing season 2 in December. Then we'll be jumping into Agent Carter's in January. So we're gonna jump a little bit between Agent Carter and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So please be sure to check that out. And also in the far future, I am so excited to say that The Expanse is going to be dropping week to week. Is there a Fans of Expanse? Is there my reviews? Am I just going to jump over to Mark's channel and hang out on a whole of his reviews? We're going to find out. Pay attention. I got to see how the December sort of fans out of here. But definitely we're going to be talking about Expanse in some way, shape, or form when it comes out in December. So that's it. Thank you so much, Silver Surfer. Dev, for everyone else that joined us in the chat. Southeast, how are you there? West Virginia Grown, Mercenary X84. Always great to see all of you. And for everyone that is watching us in the archive, please be sure to like and subscribe, and we will catch you all next week. Thanks so much. I'm D, and I'm out of here. We'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye. And now I have to hit 5 buttons in order to end this.